but it's really amazing what will happen when I put a pen to paper and I start taking the time to fill out this information that will allow me to really get a handle on where am I at, where do I want to go, and what's my next step. Welcome back to Moms Making Dough with your host, Kendra Hewitt. And today we're going to talk about the foundation of the pillars of the Moms Making Dough premise. And that is this: we start with the 4 pillars, but the foundation is always going to be working on your ever evolving money mindset. So today we're going to introduce 2 concepts that, like I said, are the pillars of the foundation. I like to say the foundation of the Moms Making Dough mindset. And we are going to talk about 2 things. One is our money blueprint, which is something that many of you might have heard about. And I'm going to elaborate and get into and define, help you define for yourself. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is identifying and creating what we call your money map. So, if just in review, the concept, the foundation, the money mindset being the foundation of what we teach here, and equip you with the tools, techniques, and resources to really take a look at your money mindset is step number 1 and what we're going to be exploring today. So, when we talk about the pillars, if you think about your money mindset as the foundation, I like to introduce this concept as you are building a home. And the first thing that you do is you lay a foundation for you to then put a structure upon. So, when we look at the structure, the 4 pillars of that structure, with the foundation being your money mindset, is the first pillar we teach here is making money. And this is where you're creating or producing income coming into your family. And you're doing this obviously by adding value, whether it's in a current career, serving others, or providing a product or service for through maybe it's a business venture that you have. And also, I like to say also too is making money is sometimes this is also a concept where there's like that invisible labor. Like maybe you are a stay-at-home mom currently and you are still a working mom. You just are doing a lot of what I call invisible labor, concept of invisible labor. So making is really about creating and producing income in some capacity for your family. The second pillar is going to be the management of your money. This is like, how do you keep the money that you already have that's or the money that's coming in? This is way beyond budgeting. This is where we look at aligning what is important to you with how you're actually managing and keeping your money. This also involves not only looking at expenses, but also looking at like your savings account and how you actually like what you pay for taxes. This is a lot to do with keeping and being smart with the management of the money that you do have coming in. The next pillar is going to be multiply. This is where we look at growing and investing that money that you acquire. And this is also where we talk a lot about how do you make the money you work so hard for go to work for you without you actively doing so. Sometimes that's passive, but also too, this is where we really start to equip you with the skills so you can actually start to hire other people to help you once you either are scaling your business or just growing your investment portfolio. And then finally, we look at maximizing. How do you start to maximize the 3 pillars, the making, manage, and the multiplying your money to create a legacy, leave a legacy for your family? Maybe it's not for your family, maybe it's a foundation or a nonprofit or a way that you give back and multiply and maximize your efforts when it comes to your money. So to get to the foundation and then start to build on all of these pillars is starts with what we call identifying your money blueprint. So your money blueprint, what is that? It has 3 components of it. The first component is going to be about your belief system. Now, where do beliefs come from? I like to say this is a concept my husband taught me that I really love saying it this way is father, mother, teacher, preacher. These are gonna be, the people that influence you most. Maybe it's not a father or mother. Maybe it is like I said, a teacher or perhaps a preacher. And beliefs can come both in the form of unconscious or conscious beliefs. Beliefs meaning something that is maybe it's some advice that a father, mother, teacher, or preacher gave you. Maybe it is something you have observed through observation. When it comes to advice, I often think of these things. I always think of my grandmother, who I spent a lot of time with when I was here, and just the little saying she would used to say, like, you know, save a penny for a rainy day or, things like "money doesn't grow on trees" was something else I heard a lot growing up. And just this is where, like, these little, almost cliche sayings, they come through us through other people, but they also are really influencing how we think and we approach money. And then the second thing when it comes to your money blueprint, identifying it, is gonna be looking at the stories. Stories that we have about money. This is usually about experiences and or events that have taken place in our life. And as I love to teach, your money blueprint is always going to be evolving. But there's always some deep roots of where it originally came from. And this is where we start to look at some of those stories that you have regarding about money. This starts us on the path of going way past our beliefs and into the stories. And when we look at stories, we look at experiences and events. Again, whether they are experiences or events you've personally experienced and or something you have observed from other people. And I feel like this is a really good segue for me to give you some background on Money Blueprint in terms of mine that I really has been there for a very long time, but at the same time, I've just really started to pay attention to. And this was a story that really impacted me, but it wasn't until I really started to see that years later that I started to really pay attention to it. And that was when I was 12 years old. My dad unexpectedly passed away. And this was obviously a very traumatic experience as a young child, but I didn't realize till very recently how much this impacted some of the ways not only did I look at money and treat money unconsciously, but also consciously how it started showing up in my life. And so when my dad passed away, obviously my mom was a single mom. And she originally started out as a chemist, and here's a couple things that I learned, much later in life that I didn't know. Number 1 is that my dad was a fireman, and he did not have enough insurance, and this was something that my mom didn't learn about until really he passed away. And the reason I share that is that, just recently, when I was doing an audit of my finances, I realized how much insurance we had, Ryan and I, and about how almost we were paying the equivalent of a mortgage payment in insurance and not necessarily the greatest type of insurance. I was fairly uneducated about the types of insurance we really needed. And so I really started to kind of overthink this process. And so this is one of the ways it showed up for me. Also, I found out as a kid that one of the things that also happened was that I we almost lost our family home when my dad passed away. So, how did this affect me just to this day? Even to this day, often we've stayed in our house for a long time. I'm not one of those people that really likes to keep up with the Joneses, but we've seriously outgrown our current house. And we need to start to look at like what that next house looks like. And I realized that in my review of my current money blueprint is that this some of these stories were really causing me to stay put, when it's really time for me to start to look at this and start to make some moves. And the third part of our money blueprint, if we look at our beliefs, our current beliefs and our past beliefs, our current stories and our past stories, and also next is we look at like our current behaviors. And we also look at the past behaviors. And when I think about the behaviors in current money blueprint, we look at some of the habits and actions that this has led us to. And as I mentioned before, when my dad unexpectedly passed away, my mom made a huge career shift. She went from, like I said, being a chemist to a real estate sales. And it was something she really became really, really good at. She's very passionate about. My mom's 75 years old today and still works in real estate simply because she loves it. And, the reason I shared this is that her behaviors and her habits became that she saw an opportunity to shift from working as a chemist, you know, on an hourly basis to creating something that where she could control more of her time so she could spend more time with my brother and I, and or she could also make, more income. She had no ceiling when she switched from, a 9 to 5 job to something with sales. And how this really impacted me was that I started to realize that like to work the same at a very young age. Like I said, I started my first business when I was 21 years old because I really, number one, didn't want a boss. And number two, I didn't want a ceiling. Now, obviously, at 21, I didn't really understand that. But now, looking back at the beliefs, the stories, and the behaviors I formed with my money blueprint over time, was that I really was drawn to having an entrepreneurial type setting, which, like I said, I have really done my whole life for almost 20 plus years now. And the ironic part is that I went to school to be a pilot, which is very, like I said, very structured. And this is also where I love to make the transition from being a pilot, which obviously I did not pursue. Like I said, I really made a switch that flying was a passion of mine and not what I wanted my career to be, about my second year of college. And I traditionally was, like I said before, not a business person. I did not have any formal business training. My formal business training was called a degree from the School of Hard Knocks. And I always like to say I had a master's in experience as well. And I'm sure many of you listening to that could relate. But one of the things that I love to shift here in when it comes to money blueprint is really talking about one of the things that I kept and took away from being a pilot. And that was this, is that when you fly, before you leave, you have to like what's the word I want to use here? You have to file a flight plan. And this is what started me really starting to look at the concept of going from identifying the first step, identifying your money blueprint, to the second step, which is your action step, where you're going to start to identify what I call your money map. So the money map concept is that for you to know where you are going on a flight plan, first of all, you have to tell them where are you taking off from? Like what is your current location on the map? And I love this concept thinking about where are you on the map today when it comes to your finances. Are you someone who is currently living paycheck to paycheck? Are you accumulating debt faster than you are actually bringing in revenue? Are you in a great cash position, but maybe you're not leveraging it to help you grow? Maybe you are someone who needs to really scale back or scale yourself out of your business because you are a total perfectionist and do it yourselfer. Trust me, I can relate to this one, where it's like no one can do it as good as you, but you actually need to leverage your cash to help you get to the next level. Or maybe you need to leverage your cash to help you buy back your time. The third thing that always see a lot is that some of the people have no flight plan at all. And others have too rigid a plan that they're not really deviating from or course correcting when they're getting off course. One of my favorite things when it comes to flying that I use as a metaphor all the time when I'm working with clients is that in when flying, you have this instrument on your dashboard and it's called a heading indicator. There's 2 tools that I really like to use. You have a heading indicator, which is what heading are you flying? And then also you have an attitude indicator, and your attitude indicator tells you where you are in relation to the horizon. And I just always think it's funny that it's called the attitude indicator. But the reason that I'm bringing up this flight plan metaphor is because there are many people, like I said, that not only have no flight plan at all when it comes to their finances, but there's other people on the other side of the spectrum that are really too rigid with their plan. And then when the rigidity is, when there's no flexibility there, they don't know necessarily how to course correct. And one of my favorite things to say about flying is that you are off course 90% of the time. You are constantly correcting for deviations when it comes to flying that are in the form of weather and atmospheric conditions and or traffic in your path, right? And so I want you to really just think about this first step of identifying your money map is where are you on the map today? Where is your starting location? Because you cannot do anything without that. The second step in creating your money map is what do you want your final destination to be? So, if I'm going to put my flight plan into action and file my flight plan, I have to tell the flight following, where am I headed? Am I headed to financial freedom? Am I headed to a financial disaster? Chances are, if we start to look at some of your habits, we will really start to know what those are. But the second thing is that being really clear on where do you want your final destination to be. And this can be both personal and professional. I like to do both um on a quarterly basis, which brings me to like what is that defining step in that destination. What do you want it to look like? And I am a huge believer in that we are not taught to really think like this, where we are starting to really identify where we want to go. We're just not encouraged to think about that vision unless you are a very visionary person. And I feel as you get older that a lot of times this vision gets a little bit faded. So this is your opportunity to really tune in and find like revisit what that destination you want to be. And there's a couple ways that I like to really do it when I'm looking at creating your money map. Number 1 is where do you wanna be the end of this quarter? I love to think of everything on a quarterly basis because I find that people can really work well and reverse engineer a plan for 90 days a lot easier than they can do it, for a longer period of time. And so the first question being on where do you want your final destination to be on your flight plan would be end of quarter. What is your target? Where do you want to end up when it comes to your either your personal, professional, or perhaps both flight plan? The next step is that where do you want to be by the end of next year? So, looking 12 months in from now. So, if we know where we are currently on the map and then we want to go 12 months out, what does that look like when it comes to your money? Have you paid down debt? Have you saved a certain amount of money? Have you invested a certain amount of money? Have you paid for your kids' college and have that already pre-planned? Have you taken a vacation? It can be in whatever context you want, as long as you're starting to look at the vision of what that looks like by this time 12 months from now. At the very minimum, I want you to look at like what is that end of quarter and what is that next year for you when it comes to the final destination. And the third step that I like to say in this um, is looking at where do you want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now. I love to vision cast 10 years from now. I'm 43 as I sit here today. So I'm 53 years old 10 years from now? What does my life look like financially 10 years from now? What would be my ultimate vision? I find that learning to exercise the muscle of end of quarter to 12 months from now to then jumping to 3, 5, or 10 years is a really good way to do it because it is very difficult to sometimes project what your life could like in 10 years. The reason I say 3 is because things are shifting so rapidly at this stage of the game in technology, in education, in AI, all of these new tools and resources that are coming in to help you really visualize what that end destination is. 10 years is a long time. So, really, I encourage you to start this very, very small by just visualizing what you want to see to happen in your finances a quarter at the end of this quarter at the minimum 12 months from now. But if you are a overachiever and you want to look at that 3, 5, and 10 years, you will start to see that things start to line up when you put out a vision of what you want that to look like. And here's a simple exercise that I encourage you all to do if you really want to A, look at your money blueprint, and B, create your money map for the next year of your life. And that is this, reviewing where you're currently on the map with this exercise. So this is something that I walk my all my clients, my coaching clients, my one-on-one coaching clients, we walk through this every quarter when it comes to their business. And it's something that I personally go through on my personal finances as well at the end of every quarter. So, where are you currently at on the map? The questions are the same. But here's how I determine what my current facts are. And the facts, once we establish the facts, I like to refer to the facts as almost the truth of where you are at today. And sometimes this is the hardest part of getting real and raw with the truth. First question I ask myself is what is working in my personal finances and what is working in my business finances? That's my first question. Your goal is to really download, I would say minimum 5, ideally 10 things that are working really well, such as, I made more, this is what I did for revenue, and this marketing strategy really worked because I had higher ROI on it. Um, or maybe my personal finances, it was like, hey, I paid in full for my daughter's school. What's not working? What's not working? Sometimes it's like things like, "Oh shit, I spent way too much money on this year. And I don't wanna do that again without a plan." And same thing, look trying to download a list of 5 to 10 things that was not working this last previous quarter or even previous year if you're doing this on a yearly basis. I have some people that really just do this once a year, but I will tell you this, if you can do this on a quarterly basis, this will change the game for you. Just asking these 2 simple questions. What's not working and what is working in your personal and professional finances if you run and operate a business? Number 2, what do you need to stop doing? Because once I have the facts of what's working and what's not working, I can start to look for patterns of things that I need to shift. What do I need to stop doing when it comes to my finances? Maybe it's I need to freeze that credit card. Maybe it's I need to stop using that credit card and use a different one. Maybe it's I need to stop hoarding cash and start hiring some new people to scale myself out of my business. What do you need to start doing? Is the second part of this. So, what do you need to stop doing when it comes to your finances? What do you need to start doing? And then the third and final step of this exercise, like I said, that I walk through every client I have, is what is your first checkpoint, AKA your action item. So this is like, what is my next step? What is my action item from doing this work of figuring out number one, what's working, what's not working in my finances? Number two, what I need to stop doing and what I need to start doing. And this is where I really look at, like, in my habits and behaviors, the actions that I'm taking, how do they need to shift? Is it I need to hire someone to help me create, maybe I need a new bookkeeper. I just went through that shift this year where it's like, you know what? It was just time for a change. And when I made that shift, things that I was missing previously by having too much dependence on someone that just did it the same way, without a lot of accountability, was a huge shift for me of little things that I was losing not only time, energy, but most of all money on that just was falling through the cracks. So one of my first checkpoints this year was like I check in with my bookkeeper on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis anymore, which originally was just a quarterly basis. And it's amazing the little shifts I've made and the progress I've made by checking in on a weekly basis versus a monthly and or quarterly basis. So what are some of those checkpoints that you could put as action items that are going to start help you see if you are on the right path to your desired destination? So I really hope that this is something you could do and that to do make doing this exercise easier for all of my listeners. I have created a PDF where I walk you through this exercise. And it's actually fill in the blank. You can print it out. If you are like me, I am one of those people that I already in my head will start going through this, but it's really amazing what will happen when I put a pen to paper and I start taking the time to fill out this information that will allow me to really get a handle on where am I at, where do I want to go, and what's my next step. That's it. It's so simple, but it will give you some prompts of asking yourself kinds of questions like, taking a look at even, like I said, what's coming in, what's going out, and most of all, give you an idea of walking you through where some of your current money beliefs are coming from, some of the money stories that might be holding you back, and also some of the behaviors that might need some housekeeping. Maybe they need some shifting and help you start to look at your money blueprint and identify what your money map would be. And this is the 2 things that I come back to, like I said, every quarter. And sometimes the money blueprint part of the exercise is just very quick. And I spend a lot more time on the money mapping. But I would really just encourage you that this is the foundation of where you start to make some shifts that really take you to the next level of a mom making dough. And, I hope this is really something that you will do and come and revisit this episode. Remember, in the show notes, I will have a place where you can enter your email and you can download that PDF that allows you to walk through this exercise. And I hope it's something that you take advantage of and just really starts to shift you in the direction. And remember, our money blueprint is always going to be evolving. It's going to be evolving based on where we are in our current life, whether it's you have one kid, multiple kid, a kid on the way, maybe it's you have toddlers like I do, or maybe you just have kids that are in college and you're getting back to now figuring out what your life looks like from a financial perspective. And maybe you're getting to actually enjoy some of that money past college where you're getting to travel a lot, or you really wanting to have more time to put in your business. Wherever you are, this is an exercise that is the foundation of everything we do, identifying your money blueprint and creating your money map. And I can't wait to hear some of the feedback I get from doing this exercise.